Hey guys, welcome back to the Poly Tea with D. We're in my living room today. Change of scenery. Does anyone even watch these videos? I don't know, but I gotta make them for the TikTokies, so it is what it is. So I hope everyone had a great week, guys. We had the best sunshine. That's why this episode is gonna be out late because I usually record on Fridays, but it was just so beautiful. The sun was shining. I was like, you know what? I just can't be indoors. I was out and about. Also, I passed my NCT. Oh, guys, what a journey. No one tells you how expensive it is to own a car. I'm sure people have told me. I just don't listen. I just needed a car so bad. And it is so expensive. Like, public transport is infinitely cheaper for me anyway because I don't do much. But it's just that it's so shit where I live that if I, like, for simple journeys, I just want to use it. But it's like I'm paying insurance, like, I don't know, €130 a month, bro. And I'm always fucking late paying it. So it's always even more than that. So like I don't even spend that much on public transport. Like I've never spent that much in a month on public transport. So it is cheaper, but it just like it's such a trek to use the bus here. Like honestly, Lewis I don't mind, but the bus is just a trek. So hence why I got the car. But oh anyway, now that I passed my NCT, next is passing my driver's test. I need guys. I have been on that list since November. No, no. I want to say August. Around August, was on the list, and then it was supposed to be done in November. I knew it wasn't going to be November because like the only area that it has the longest waiting list ever. But I at least thought, okay, November delayed, maybe it'll be January. How are we in April now? And I still haven't even gotten called to do the test. Like I need to get this done in the next few weeks. Like I'll talk about that later about why I need to, but I need to get it done in the next few weeks. So can they hit my line up? Like, oh, I don't know. This is dragging anyway. So next step is getting my test done, and I will pass first time. Everybody who drives with me always says that I'm gonna pass my first test, my first time. So I'm very confident about that. Anyway, that has been a rundown of my. That was only yesterday, actually. The rest of the week was a bit of an whatever. But yeah, that was my Friday. So I'm enjoying life. I'm enjoying the sun. I hope you guys are enjoying the sun. Let's keep these good vibes going, actually. But the thing is, every time I mention the weather and how good it is, it instantly wants to make me like embarrassed, and it'll start getting gloomy or rain or whatever. So I need to kind of stop mentioning the weather for everybody's sake because I feel like I'm a bit of a bad luck charm. So yeah. Anyway, let's get into this week's Polly Tea with D. We've got a couple things to talk about. I actually never put these in order of like event or anything. I just kind of whatever order I write them down in. So I don't even know what order we're going in, but let's just get into it. Guys, let's talk about the modular homes, okay? So, number one, the homeowner must be living in the main dwelling. So that means if you own a home and then you put a modular home, let's call them sheds first of all. Why are we normalizing living in sheds? Anyway, if you put a modular home in your back garden, you also have to be living in that main house. You can't rent out your house and also the modular house. Like it's not you can't do that. So, that's number 1. The garden must be at least 25 square meters, whatever that means. I have no concept of distance or size, so I don't think that's a lot, but whatever. It has to be at least that amount of space, right? Also, the modular home must have a separate entrance to the main house. So you can't be going through someone's house to get to your modular house. There has to be a separate entrance. And then obviously the regular stuff. Must comply with building regulations, fire safety, building control habits, and also the rent a room scheme will be expanded to cover these modular homes. So the rent a room scheme means if you rent out a room in your house, you can earn up to €14,000 tax free. So if you live in your main house and then you build a modular house and someone lives in that, you can earn €14,000 tax free. And then the government said after 18 months, they'll review this plan. My problem is, why are we normalizing living in a shed? Can someone answer me that? This is not normal. I just don't think this is normal. Like, instead of actually just addressing the housing crisis head on and investing all the surplus money, we'll get into the money that we're making soon, but instead of investing all of that money in just social housing, the government keeps saying we can't do this alone, we can't do this alone, we can't do this alone. You actually can. First of all, opposition parties have built up plans to do said thing that you said isn't possible, and relying on these international investors to somehow build up the amount of houses that we have is not going to work, and it didn't work in the 2010s. Why the fuck would it work now, or in the early 2000s? Why would it work now? And where has that worked? Do you know what I mean? Like, why do they think it's such a bizarre concept that a government builds more state houses? Why is that so difficult for them to comprehend as an idea? I mean, obviously, because that's how the capitalist mind works. Okay, that's literally they don't think about it as like okay, there's homeless people, there's people on the streets, people are suffering. They don't think about it as that way. They're thinking about how can we make more money. And how are we making money if we create social houses and state homes where people aren't paying as much rent? How do we make money from that? If anything, we might lose money, blah, 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 blah. That's their logic. So obviously they're thinking best way to do that is one, these modular homes that they can get money from, and two, these vulture funds, these international corporations and landlords who come in and build massive, massive, massive apartments, loads and loads of apartments, charge extortionate rents, and then the government get money from that. So whatever. I can't believe there's people who like live, love, and die by capitalism. But hey, that's the world we live in. It shouldn't be, but that's the world we live in, sadly. So this is what Simon Harris said. He said, there is a housing emergency, and we have to, and I believe this instinctively, we have to remove bureaucracy and administration and red tape and make it as easy as possible for people to be able to have homes, have shelters, and use their own garden space as well. Oh my God. Anyway, but it is also important we look at this and keep it under tight review. So built into the proposal today will be a review within 18 months, and I think that is important. I'm unmoved and I'm unbothered. Like, ugh. Anyway, so what are people who have common sense thinking about this? Well, the housing charity Threshold has said this is not a great idea because, first of all, these are going to be treated as licenses. So these people aren't technically even tenants. So you don't even have the same, protections, like the whole rent pressure zone. That doesn't apply to someone who lives in a modular home. You're licensing out this house. You're not actually renting it, So you way less legal protections. You've no security of tenure, and you could easily be evicted because you don't fall under any of the rules that apply to tenants. That's terrifying. Okay, so that's what Threshold are saying. That's what the opposition are saying. Yeah, it's very worrying. Let's talk about the arms embargo bill. I don't know if I've talked about this on here before. I feel like I've talked about it before, but I don't know if that was on TikTok ages ago. Because I swear to God, this bill has been in the works for years, bruh. Like 2024, right? So, and I remember this because as I do watch random live streams, I was watching a live stream of the debate around this in the Seanad, and this is how old it was. Eamon Ryan was there, and he's from the Green Party. Baby, the Green Party only have one TD now, so this was back in the days when they were actually in government and they had like 11 TDs in there. So, Eamon Ryan, he was Minister for Transport at the time. Terrible Minister for Transport, I've got to say. But whatever. They all are, to be fair. I think he did some decent work, actually. I won't get too aggy. This isn't about Eamon Ryan. Why is he even getting why am I shooting at him today? There's no need. Anyway, the arms embargo bill. Let me preface this with saying it's dead. Okay? She died. Cynthia died for our Cynthias. Do you guys know that reference? Shout out to what is it? What is it? 22 Jump Street. I got it. 22 Jump Street. Shout out to 22 Jump Street. Anyway, so this bill is called the Air Navigation and Transport Bill 2024 and has arms embargo in there. So it was a bill introduced by senators Alice Mary Higgins, Lynn Rowan, Francis Black, and Eileen Flynn, right? So what is it calling for, or what was it calling for? Because she's dead, right? They wanted to restrict the transit and export of weapons of war from and through Ireland to Israel, ban exemptions that currently allow civil aircraft to carry munitions through Irish airspace, require inspections of aircraft seeking permission to transit weapons. So this is what Senator Alice Mary Higgins said, right? And she is the person who one of the senators who put forward this bill. She said, while the carriage of munitions of war, weapons, and dangerous goods is prohibited on any civil aircraft in Irish territory or through Irish airspace, exemptions can be and frequently are granted by the Minister for Transport. The minister granted exemptions for a record 1,354 flights in 2024. which is an increase from 1,185 in 2023. And this was with no inspections of any of the aircraft. There has been a 5,667% increase in exemptions granted to Irish registered civil aircraft operating outside of Ireland, carrying munitions of war since 2021, following a sharp increase in 2023. So the people that sponsored this bill are basically arguing that Ireland has been indirectly facilitating the movement of munitions used in the genocide in Gaza. Like, we are facilitating that genocide because we're allowing the transport of the weapons that are used to bomb innocent men, women, and children. Okay? And this bill, first of all, was actually like perfectly timed because it's after the ICJ ruled that Israel is like most likely committing a genocide in Gaza. So they were calling for states to take actions to stop that, to prevent it. So this would be one of the actions that we could take. And in 2024, the UN Human Rights Council passed a resolution calling for an arms embargo on Israel. So again, we would be following the UN Human Rights Council and the ICJ's ruling. Anyway, it was shut down. So this bill kept being postponed and postponed and postponed. Because I remember I was watching that live stream, and that was in 2024, right? And Eamon Ryan was like, okay, we're just going to push it forward for another 6 months. And then we had the general election, and it just kept being postponed. And people were like, we'll talk about it, we won't, whatever. Eventually, they have another conversation, and it passes the committee stage. But then the Seanad shuts it down. Okay, so I thought, hey, let's just name and shame some people out here, okay? Because maybe you know these senators, maybe you don't. I don't actually. None of these names are names that I recognize. But hey, I think it's important that we name and shame the senators who shut this down. Okay, so we have Garrett Ahern, Park Brady, Cathal Byrne, Maria Byrne, Lorraine Clifford Lee, Alison Comyon, Martin Conway, Ollie Crow, Shane Curley, Paul Daly, Mark Duffy, Judd Flaherty, Garrett Kelleher, Mike Kennedy, PJ Murphy, Margaret Murphy O'Mahony, Linda Nelson Murray, Ivani Quillen, Noel O'Donovan, Fiona O'Loughlin, Anne Rabeat, Dee Ryan, and Gareth Scahill. So those are the senators who shut down this bill that literally would have been following the ICJ ruling and the UN Human Rights Council ruling as well. So, hey, if you know better than these professionals, then who am I to judge? Oh, except I am judging. You're a piece of shit. Next. This is the perfect segue to move on to my next topic. I don't want to spend too much time on this. I just thought it was important to highlight because she made points that I've previously made, and she's getting so much hate, and I'm like, girl, stand your ground. And she's standing her ground, fair play to her. She's standing 10 toes down behind the comments that she made, and a lot of people agree with her, but a lot of fucking nut jobs don't agree with her, and they're making her life miserable. Okay, so who's Eileen Flynn? She made history to become the first woman from the traveler community to sit in the upper house. Okay, she used to work as a community development worker with the National Traveler Women's Forum, and she got elected to the Seanad because she was nominated by Micheál Martin when he first became Taoiseach in 2020, and then she was re-elected to the role, right? So what did she say to have these people up in fucking arms? Okay, she was talking about the fuel protests, right? And she said that she couldn't get behind the fuel protests because of the way that it was hijacked by the far right, and that she refuses to stand in protests where the tricolour is being flown because that has also been hijacked by the far right. And I don't know why people are acting dense about this, because you can't act like you haven't seen a shift, right? This happened with the Union Jack in the UK. When you see that outside of someone's house, you're thinking, oh, something ain't right. Me and the girls were at EP not yesterday, last year. The tent beside us had the tricolour, and we were like, hmm. We literally all just looked silent. We all looked at each other and we're like, what the hell is that about? That shouldn't be the norm. But unfortunately, that is the norm now, because we see this at all of these anti-immigration nationalist march saying, Ireland for the Irish, get them out, get them out, get them out. So now when I see that flag, I'm thinking, oh, you want me out of here. Get them banned. You know, that's what I think, and that's what a lot of people think. And I think it's so delusional that these people don't understand the impact that their words and actions have on other people. And why wouldn't we think that when that's like you've made it like the symbol of hatred now, which is upsetting. And I think there are, campaigns to kind of reclaim the flag, but I still feel a certain way about the tricolor, which is really upsetting because this is my home. But anyway, that is just the case. She said, I will not stand by when our flag is being used to promote hatred, division, and anti immigration remarks. For me, the flag means peace, unity, justice, and equality. Why are you triggered by that? Why are you triggered by that? Why are you triggered by that? Side mark. Side eye, right? So she's been getting the most evil vitriol, like levels of hatred in her comments. What always gets me about stuff like this that happens is these guys who, because it's a lot of men in her comments, right? These men that say they want immigrants out because they care about women's safety, they want to keep women safe, blah 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 blah. We always know that it's bullshit because you're more likely to be killed by a partner. Like women are more likely to be killed by a partner or someone that they know. It's almost never a random person on the street, okay? And when it is a random person on the street, they make that the headline instead of the numbers surrounding domestic violence in this country, right? They don't want to talk about that because then they would have to acknowledge that their brothers, their uncles, their fathers are people who go to these marches but then behind closed door beat their wives, okay? They don't want to talk about that. Anyway, it always makes me confused or a little, suspect that these people march on the streets, right? And they say they want to protect women. But when a woman disagrees with you, in this case, an Irish woman at that, an Irish woman disagrees with you, an Irish woman doesn't share the same belief points that you have, you're now in her comments, you're now DMing her absolute hatred, you're putting threats on her life. How does that protect her though? Why is that an acceptable level of violence? Why is that okay as a man for you to do to another woman? She's an Irish traveler, right? And all of these things are attacking her accent, her pronunciation, her vocabulary. Is that not racist, right? Like, I don't know why racists don't like being called racist. Like, if you say racist shit, I'm gonna call you a racist. Like, it's not complicated, it's not confusing, it's just the way that it is. Like they just hate being called out for their actions. It's always so ridiculous. But anyway, she said that's what they're calling her out on, basically, because they think she's illiterate or whatever. Fair play to her. She's standing 10 toes down behind her decision. She said, I don't give two damns about the English dictionary. I'm not going to change the way I speak. Fair play. And you know what's annoying is a lot of these people who are attacking her don't actually give a shit about the substance of what she's saying. And I'd say they've never even seen her out of this fucking context. She's incredibly smart. Incredibly smart. And she has been advocating for people, for the traveler community, Palestinians, for so much of her career. Have they tried to listen to what she says about that? They don't care about the substance of what she's saying. They care about how she says it. And I don't agree with conversations like that because it's like, who cares? It's the same way I don't like to read academic papers because I'm like, you're waffling. You're waffling. You're using big words. You're doing too much just to make it seem like you're smarter than you actually are. I think a sign of intelligence is being able to explain a concept simply to somebody so that anybody can understand it. These people don't want that. They want someone who speaks proper. That colonialist mindset has got to you, first of all. The British have gotten to you if that's how you think. Okay? They want someone who speaks proper. And it's like, who the fuck cares? Listen to what she's saying, not how she says it. What's not clicking here? Anyway, I'll end it there. Actually, one line. The anger that she's receiving right now is based on her background and the way she speaks. It has nothing to do with her qualifications. And these people are just full of hatred and bias. And it's racist. Period, point blank. So, yes. Racism against travelers exists. And I don't know why people in this country really struggle to believe that or accept that, but maybe it's because they are racist to travelers. So by acknowledging that that's a fact, they would have to, look at themselves in the mirror and accept that they are themselves racist. So anyway, next. Okay, I'm gonna have to read a lot for this one because it's not my forte. It's economics, and I couldn't give two hooks about economics, but it is kind of important because economics does impact politics, obviously. So let's get into it. So the government spring economic forecast has come out, and it says that, our growth this year is not as strongly as previously predicted, right? So the Department of Finance revised its growth projection for modified domestic demand, MDD. So it's gone from 2.1%, gone down to 2.1%. Before it was 2.3%. So what is the MDD, right? Because we get so much money from like multinational companies, our GDP is kind of like distorted because so much of it is influx from like, you know, all the pharmaceutical companies and stuff like that and the big tech and whatever. So it's hard to see actually how much as a country are we making from the people in the country. Do you know what I mean? So workers, families, local businesses, like the domestic economy. So that's what the MDD actually is tracking. So it ignores all of these like multinational companies and stuff and how much they actually bring in. So that is what this is tracking, right? So before it was the growth projection was 2.3% and now it's 2.1%, and this is linked to the conflict of Iran and just a lot of geopolitical issues, right? Keep this in mind. So our growth has gone down a tiny bit. What is it? 0.2%, 0.02%? No, 0.2%, right? It's gone down to 0.2%. Keep that in mind, right? So you may be thinking, oh, that's not great. We're not making as much money as possible as we could be. No, 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 no. Because the government thought on budget day last year, the government said that we would probably make a surplus of 5.1 billion euro. Okay. That's actually been upgraded. Now it's looking like we're going to have a government surplus of 9.2 billion euro. That's like a lot more money, guys. 4.1 billion more, actually, if we're going to get technical with it. That's almost double what we thought we were going to have. So this is because of higher corporation taxes, social insurance revenue, and our local authorities are spending less than before or less than usual. That's not really not a good sign. But anyway, okay, I'm throwing a lot of words. I'm throwing a lot of like money and numbers at you. It's not that important, okay? Our growth from the the specific numbers aren't important. Our growth from the MDD, a tiny bit down, but our government surplus, massively up. So keep in mind, we're making more money than we thought we would. This will all tie in together. Another decision has been recently made, or a decision has been made, right, by the European Commission. And this is to deal with the short to medium, term effect of the energy crisis caused by the war in Iran. A lot of the conversation that had been happening recently around the fuel crisis and the fuel protests was that the government couldn't just cut taxes and they couldn't do all of these things because the EU said we couldn't do this. We're tied to the EU. We have to do what's other EU countries are doing similar. We have to stay within these boundaries. But the EU have just come out and said, actually, we're going to relax some of these state aid rules. If you want to give out energy credits, if you want to give out some tax cuts to your citizens to help them with this, with the energy crisis, you can now do that, right? So they've even suggested some of these supports. They've said supports could include price controls, income supports, tax breaks, and some supports for energy intensive industries. So for the big companies, whatever. We don't talk about them because we don't care about them, right? So this information comes out and the opposition are like, hey, so since we're making more money now, and also the EU have relaxed their rules when it comes to the states giving aid to their citizens, maybe you guys could do like a little cost of living budget. This is specifically Sinn Féin, the finance spokesperson Pierce Doherty. He said this. He has now urged the government to introduce an emergency cost of living package because one, where we have some extra government surplus coming in that we weren't expecting, and because of the EU Commission's decision to relax the state aid rules that were in place. Okay, so he says that people are we know this. People are struggling with energy bills, fuel costs, groceries, and just the day-to-day stuff. So he's saying the government now have the ability to provide some short-term measures. The government has said we're absolutely not fucking doing that. Shout out to Simon Harris. He said there will be no mini budget. Wait it out until October, then we can talk. That is the plan. It has always been the plan. I don't give a fuck about these extra euros coming in. I don't care what the EU says. There will be no mini budget. He says he hasn't ruled out some more support, but he started talking about the like the construction sector, and he was talking about how, they're struggling a little bit. So maybe we'll give them a little bit of euros, a little bit of money, something, something to keep them going, to keep them afloat. But no mention of actual citizens. Like, literally no mention of us anywhere. I just, is it a polity with the episode if I don't mention the fact that the government doesn't care about us? They don't care about us. Shout out to Michael Jackson. Has anybody seen that movie, Michael? I haven't seen it yet. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. Maybe I should just wait until it's online. Anyway, so let me recap this whole section really quickly because I feel like economics trip me up, so maybe they trip other people up. Our GDP is heavily inflated by multinational companies. So we have this thing called the MDD to track how much we spend within the country, like just the citizens, just local businesses, workers, families, just our domestic economy, right? That growth has gone down from 2.3% to 2.1%. So that's something to keep in mind. But then it comes out that our government surplus has gone from our predicted government surplus has gone from 5.1 billion to 9.2 billion. Okay, so now we're making almost double that we thought we were in government surplus, right? So this has caused the opposition members, specifically Sinn Féin, to say maybe a cost of living package would be great to help people, because now you have the EU Commission coming in and saying we're going to relax EU state rules so you can actually support your country and support your citizens and don't have to rely on the rules that we have, and you don't have to rely so much on what other EU states around you are doing. Do the best thing you can to help your citizens, whether that's emergency credits, tax reliefs, tax credit cuts and stuff like that. Do what you can. The government hears this and says, no, we're not going to do that. There's not going to be a mini budget. There's not going to be a cost of living budget, like cost of living package anytime soon. Just wait for the actual budget in October. That is where we are. I hope that makes sense, actually. I think that makes sense now that I've cut it up a little bit. But yeah, that's where we are. Okay, next, by-election. I already talked about the by-election age ago, but I don't know. I remember seeing May 22nd and I was like, did I make that date up? And then I couldn't find the actual date, and it's because there was no date. This was just like the predicted date, but it is May 22nd. So, recap, two Dáil seats are becoming vacant. One in Dublin Central, and that's to replace Pascal Donoghue, who left to have a senior role in the World Bank. Shout out to that guy. Then Galway West to replace Catherine Connolly because she is now our president. Polling day, 22nd of May, 2026. So who are our candidates? These are our for sure so far. I don't know if more people will come out. Nominations close soon, so they'd want to get a move on if they're going to come out. Let's start with Dublin Central. We have Janice Boylan, Sinn Féin. Daniel Ennis, Social Democrat. Jeanette Horner, Green Party. Jerry the Monk Hutch. Wow. That's a choice. Independent. Ray McAdam, Fine Gael. Ruth O'Day, Labour. Owen O'Cianavan, People Before Profit. Ian Noel Smith, Aintu. Malachi Steenson, Independent. And John Stevens, Fianna Fáil. Okay, so we've got a few options there. There's somebody for everybody. There's somebody for everybody. Who do we have in Galway West? We have Mike Hubbard, Independent. Sheila Garrity, Independent. Killian Keane, Fianna Fáil. Sean Keane, Fine Gael. Mark Lowen, Sinn Féin. Niall Murphy, Green Party. Mija Nikiniucht, Social Democrats. Orla Nugent, I don't know, I can't read this shit. Aintu. Helen Ogbu, Labour. Denran Rook, People Before Profit. Noel Thomas, Independent Ireland. And Thomas Welby, Independent. So if you're not registered, you have I think it's 15 days, not including Sundays and bank holidays, 15 days before an election to register to vote if you haven't. So if it's on May 22nd, you have 15 days, not including Sundays and bank holidays to register to vote. You should be registered by now. I'm speaking now though to the people who maybe weren't 18 at the last election but are 18 now. So register. Now, let me not shame the people who haven't registered to vote. Register, guys, okay? I don't know, I'm just so deflated sometimes when I think about the fact that there's young people out there who have not registered to vote, and you're over 18, please, guys. Please register to vote. Please register to vote. I actually can't emphasize this enough. Register to vote, please. I'm begging you. I'm literally begging you. I'm begging. Dead ass. Okay. Next. Okay, let's talk about the International Protection Bill. Remember last week I was talking about how Catherine Connolly has convened her Council of State to talk about this bill and whether to sign it in or to refer it to the Supreme Court. So she had that meeting on Monday with her Council of State. It was 3 hours long. They discussed all the constitutionality of the legislation, right? And at the end of it, she decided not to refer to the Supreme Court. So she released a statement. It's very wordy, but in literally 3 sentences, what she's saying is, I still think that there's problems with this bill, but if I send it to the Supreme Court and they approve it, nobody can ever challenge it again. So it's better to let people challenge it later based on real world situations rather than shutting the door right now. I have to agree. I obviously want this bill to not be passed at all, but if it means, because of its Article 34.3 in the Irish Constitution in Bunreath na hÉireann, it basically means if you refer something to the Supreme Court, no court can ever challenge that again if it passes. Like if you send it to the Supreme Court says this is constitutional, it can never be challenged again. So I understand why she's saying if I send it and it goes there, it's now a bulletproof bill and nobody can ever use it in their court cases in the future again. So yeah, it probably is better to allow people in real situations to deal with this. It's frustrating, obviously, but like it is smart. It is smart. I just hate this bill, so that's my take on that. But anyway, that's the end of that. Okay, let's talk about the Children's Hospital. Damn, how is this still happening? Okay, let's get into it, right? My update is there is no update. Isn't that so funny? No, it's not funny at all. It's actually really depressing, right? So we still don't have a reliable completion date because Jennifer Carroll McNeil, who was our Minister for Health, sat down with somebody at RT and had a little interview. And what does she have a nickname? JCM. Let's call her JCM. JCM has been doing a press tour run, bashing BAM, who are the contractors for the children's hospital, at every turn. Genuinely, I'm not exactly what I'm not sure what the goal is. I assume it's to take the pressure off the government and to take the blame off the government. And to put it on BAM so that people aren't constantly saying to the government, where's the hospital? And they can just say, well, ask BAM. Because that's literally what she says in every interview. She says, I can't tell you that. Ask BAM, ask BAM, ask BAM, right? So I think it's more of a shift blame situation going on here. But she sat down with Dorothy and she had a little interview. And they asked her, so when will the hospital be done? And she said, we do have a timeline, but is it going to be met? If you've experienced something 19 times, do you expect it to be different on the 20th? Okay. So she said, so they've had 19 substantial completion dates, and it just keeps being push and push and push and push. And now that they're on their 20th date, I don't know what the date is, right? So the opening depends on the hot block. So that means the hospital can only be opened 7 months after the hot block has been done. And the hot block is the place where the critical care and the operating theaters are, right? So BAM are saying this is not our fault, actually. This is like, you guys keep putting the blame on us, but it's genuinely not our fault. And what do they say is the issue? They said that the fact that the day keeps being pushed back and back and back is because of instructed design changes and additional scope, not a failure of delivery. And they said, and they were pointing to 25,000 design revisions, with new drawings still being issued in 2026. So they're saying that the states, whether it be the HSC, the CHI, whoever, or in this case, the National Pediatric Hospital Development Board, they are saying that they keep giving us things that they want to change, new designs that they want implemented. They keep changing and changing and changing, so it's making it difficult for us to build something that's constantly being changed, right? So they're trying to shift the blame back. Now, the National Pediatric Hospital Development Board says any statement that there have been 20,000 plus design changes is incorrect. And then they carry on to say, this is what makes me not believe the state, right? This is what makes me not believe them or the National Pediatric Hospital Development Board. Because they then go on to say, on every construction project, it is normal for drawings to be revised to incorporate the contractor's design, systems, and products, right? And they say this is because EU procurement rules prohibit fully specifying systems and product names at the tender stage. So they're basically saying we actually can't even give you our official drawings at the beginning, like when we're deciding who we're going to go to at the tender stage. We can't give you that. So obviously when you get the job, you get the contract. Now we're giving you more revisions because we couldn't have given that to you beforehand. We're not allowed to do that because of the EU. But it just makes me believe the BAM a bit. I don't know who I believe, to be fair, but it makes me believe BAM a little bit because they're coming out and saying it's normal for there to be lots and lots of changes, but it isn't 20,000 plus. I bet you it's like 19.99 thousand or something. I don't even know. Okay, but that's where it is. It's a very like he said, she said, or they said, you know, who are we gonna believe? Because I'm not in the room where it happens. None of us are in the room where it happens. I don't have the pages. I don't have the proof. I don't have these specific design revisions that are apparently out there. So I just have to go on what these people are saying. But they both have conflicting arguments. But either way, this hospital is nowhere near done. You know what's crazy? My friend is a nurse, and so she was, and we graduated 2024, so we started in 2020, right? She was supposed to end, or one of her friends who did child nursing was supposed to have their last year in that hospital. In this hospital that's nowhere near done. And this project has cost us 2.2 billion, bro. So I remember my friend actually, she got to go on like a site visit to it, and they had like, I think they had helmets on or some shit, I guess because they were still building and stuff. But I remember she went around and they were in their scrubs and shit, and I was like, baby, you ain't working there. Take them scrubs off, you're not working there. But yeah, this shit ain't done. And will we see it? It'll obviously get done at some point, but I don't think we're anywhere near it being finished. Anywhere near. So that's the update. And oh, I have one last note here. Occupied Territories Bill. I don't have any notes on it written because this is just my thoughts. Where the hell is it? Where the hell is it? The government keep getting away with this. This is really driving me crazy. The government keep getting away with this. Where the fuck is that bill? They promised us the bill in 2024 when the general election was. That was the general election was November 2024. So we assumed it would be sometime in January, like January, February of 2025. Okay? We're in April 2026 and that bill is nowhere to be found. And they were months ago saying it's a priority, it's a priority. How is it a priority if you've managed to pass the rent pressure zone bill, the new rent bill, you've managed to pass the international protection bill? How are those two priorities and the occupied territory bill is not a priority? But you said it was a priority, so how is that not passed? A bill, mind you, that has been started before both of those bills were started. You've got the time, you've got the energy, you've got the speed, clearly. You just don't have the effort or the care at all for Palestinian people at all, genuinely. Because how is this bill still not out there? God knows. Anyway, that's all I have for today. That's all I have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys next week. Why did I say that so fastly? I will see you guys next week, okay? Hopefully I'll be on time, but if the weather keeps playing like this, the podcast is gonna have to go on pause. I want to be outside. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.